They say the past is a foreign country. They're wrong. The past is just the dark, velvet pocket you keep a knife in. And tonight, the moonlight catches the gleam. It always does. My name is Arthur Vance. Used to be a decent name. Now it's the name of a man sitting in an empty, echoing apartment. The stale scent of cheap bourbon and forgotten promises clinging to the air like a shroud. The apartment belonged to Lila. I met Lila 5 years ago. I was working the night shift at the Blue Note, a jazz joint where the shadows were deeper than the drinks. I was the cleanup guy then, mopping up the sticky sin from the floor, wiping down the mahogany bar that had soaked up more secrets than a priest's collar. She walked in on a Tuesday. Not the kind of woman who walks anywhere. She glided. She had hair the color of midnight and eyes that were liquid gold under the smoky lights. She didn't order a drink. She just sat at a corner table right near the band and watched. She watched me. I kept my head down. Guys like me don't get looks like that from women like her. Not unless they're about to be robbed. She came back the next night. And the night after. On the fourth night, she slid a crumpled napkin across the bar toward me. Scrawled in lipstick was a single word. Coffee. I'm not a fool. I knew the danger in her. It was palpable, like the heat from a fire too beautiful to turn away from. But the coffee turned into a life. A life where her laugh was the only rhythm I cared about. Where her touch was the only forgiveness I needed. We were a cliché. I know. The beautiful, troubled siren and the gritty, loyal fool. But it was our cliché. She had a past. A deep, ugly ocean of a past. And the captain of that vessel was a man named Victor The Vulture Marino. Victor wasn't just a mobster. He was an institution. He owned half the city's docks, a quarter of its politicians, and, until I stole her, he owned Lila. She had been his accountant. The one who kept the books, the codes, the offshore holdings. She was brilliant. Too brilliant for me, maybe. When she left him, she didn't just walk out. She took something. Something that guaranteed Victor would never stop looking. She never told me what. Just said, "It's my insurance, Arthur. The only thing keeping us alive." We ran. Not far enough. Not fast enough. 3 days ago, I got home. The door was unlocked. The air conditioner was fighting a losing battle with the summer heat. The scent of her expensive perfume was still there, but it was thinner, like a ghost. And on the coffee table, next to the empty space where her favorite silver locket used to be, was a single black playing card. The Ace of Spades. Victor's calling card. She was gone, but he'd left me a message. A folded note, slipped inside the card. I still remember every perfect, cold syllable. "Tell the little accountant to bring my portfolio back. Corner of 7th and Cypress. Midnight. Alone. If you call the cops, or if she's not there, I'll mail you her eyes." Midnight. That was tonight. In 3 hours. I have 3 hours. 3 hours to go from Arthur Vance, failed dreamer, to Arthur Vance, avenging angel. I don't own a suit. I don't own a nice car. But I own this. A .38 snub-nose revolver. I bought it from a desperate man behind a diner. Felt heavy in my hand. Not heavy with metal, but heavy with responsibility. I had one purpose now. Get Lila back. I couldn't call the police. That was a death sentence for her. I couldn't just show up with a gun and a prayer. Victor has an army. He doesn't walk onto a street corner. He occupies it. But I had something Victor didn't know about. I had the knowledge of Lila. She was paranoid. She knew this day might come. She hid everything she valued. And what she valued wasn't money. It was escape. I started tearing the apartment apart. Not with brute force, but with love. I knew her tics, her little jokes. She hated broken symmetry. I pulled the right-hand book on the shelf. The Complete History of Jazz. Nothing. I pulled the left-hand book. A Study in Scarlet. The spine was loose. I ripped it open. Inside, wrapped in a brittle piece of silk, was a small, tarnished key. A locker key. A gym locker, a train station. I flipped it over. Engraved on the back were 3 numbers and a letter. 709p. I ran to her old desk. The one she said she bought because it looked like a secret. I pulled the center drawer. Nothing but receipts. Then I saw it. She'd glued a little cork footpad on the bottom of the drawer. Only one. I flipped the desk over. Underneath the drawer track, a tiny, almost invisible scratch. I pried open the thin wood panel. Inside was a thin, spiral-bound notepad. Her meticulous handwriting. Not financial notes. Locations. Old Man Hauser's pawn. Locket.st. Jude's cemetery. Safe. North Station lockers. 709p. She did it. She planned a contingency. She didn't just run. She set up a treasure hunt. I grabbed the key and the revolver. I was out the door in a flash, my heart pounding a rhythm against my ribs that was faster than any snare drum. North Station was a tomb of steel and concrete, smelling of diesel and disappointment. I found locker 709p. The key slid in. The lock clicked. I pulled the door open. Inside wasn't a bomb or a brick of cash. It was a leather-bound journal. Victor's portfolio. I flipped it open. It wasn't numbers. It was names, dates, locations, payments. Every politician, judge, and cop Victor had on the payroll. This wasn't just a list. This was an insurance policy for the whole damn city. If this went public, Victor was finished. Lila hadn't taken his money. She had taken his power. She didn't want to sell it. She wanted to keep it hidden. A leash on his throat. A guarantee of her freedom. I checked my watch. 11:30 p.m. 30 minutes. I had what Victor wanted. But he wasn't going to just trade Lila for this book. He was going to take the book and silence the only two people who knew about it. Me and Lila. The key was the word alone. He wanted me defenseless. I took a picture of the first 2 pages of the journal with my cheap flip phone. A Hail Mary. Then I slammed the locker shut. But I didn't lock it. I left the journal inside, the door slightly ajar. I knew the location he chose. 7th and Cypress. A desolate, dead-end street with a single, sputtering street lamp. Perfect for an ambush. I had to change the rules of the game. I had to bring the chaos. I started running. I was on 7th and Cypress at 11:58 p.m. It was exactly as I pictured. 3 big, silent black cars idling under the yellow-orange glow of the dead lamp. Victor's thugs, all muscle and bad intentions, were lining the pavement. And then Victor emerged from the center car. The Vulture. He was smaller than I expected. Older. But his eyes, they were the color of stagnant water. And they had a 1,000-yard stare that could turn your blood to ice. He was holding her. Lila. She was pale, her dress torn. But her eyes. They were still gold, and they were fixed on me. A single, silent tear tracked down her cheek. Ah, Arthur Vance. The loyal puppy. So predictable. I stepped out of the shadows. I was empty-handed. No gun. No book. I kept my voice level. Where's the exchange? Victor, the first thought you wanted the book. I'll take the book when I know it's the right one, and when I know you haven't made copies, and when I'm sure you're dead, Arthur. But let's skip the pleasantries. Where is it? I looked him straight in those dead eyes. It's safe. Locked up. You can have the location, Victor. But you have to let her go first. Walk away, Lila. Arthur, no. He'll kill you. He won't let me go. I ignored her, focusing only on him. You want the truth, you want your city back, let her go. And I'll give you the number of the locker. The key is in the lock. Everything you own is in that book. Victor smirked. A nasty, wet sound. You think I'm an idiot? I take the location, my men grab the book, and you run off to the police with some tall tale. No, I take you both to a nice, dark place where you can both talk until your tongues fall out. Grab him. I felt a massive fist connect with my jaw. My vision swam. 2 men pinned my arms. They held me there, face to face with Victor. Last chance, Arthur. The location. Or I start cutting pieces of her off. I'll start with the finger that wore your cheap little ring. He drew a switchblade. The gleam of the steel was the last thing I saw clearly. I had run out of time. I had run out of choices. I was right where he wanted me. But this was the key to her plan. The one thing she told me, he thinks he knows what I value. He thinks it's the book. But what I really value, Arthur, is what I never told you. I closed my eyes, and I screamed the one number I knew would ruin his perfect ambush. I screamed the phone number of the chief of police's private, unlisted cell. The number I saw in the journal next to a 5-figure payment. 4045551212, that's the number you dial. Victor, tell Chief Miller his payments are about to stop. I just sent a text with his name and a snapshot of the first 2 pages to the city paper. Victor's eyes widened. For the first time, he looked not cold, but utterly terrified. He knew his empire was built on silence. I had just introduced the word publicity into his equation. You fool. You ruined it. Kill him. Kill them both. Now. His men moved. The one holding Lila pushed her aside. The other raised his fist for the killing blow. But Lila was already in motion. She was a runner, a dancer, a survivor. When the thug pushed her, she didn't fall. She spun, grabbed a loose piece of cinder block from the crumbling wall, and with a terrible, desperate strength, she brought it down on the man pinning my arm. The man roared and his grip failed. I drove my elbow back into the gut of the other man, buying myself a second. Victor, panicking, was already scrambling back into his car. He left his 2 stunned henchmen and his prized hostage behind. Coward. I didn't reach for my gun. I reached for Lila. I dragged her behind the meager cover of a dumpster. The 2 remaining thugs were lost. Their boss was gone. The sirens were deafening. The book. Arthur, the book. You left it at the station. I pulled her close, pressing her head into my chest. Her heart was a frantic, terrified bird. I know. I never had it. I only had the picture. But Victor doesn't know that. And the cops are here now. They see the thugs, the cars, the knife. They think you're a victim. They think I'm a hero. I kissed her forehead, the smell of gunpowder already mixing with her perfume. They'll find the book, Lila, Victor's list, and he's gonna spend the rest of his life wondering if I have the real one, or if they just have the copy. He's finished. We stood there, clinging to each other in the harsh, sudden light of the cruiser spotlights. The sound of our breathing was the only honest thing left in the street. I had lost my clean life. I had become a criminal, a liar, and a fighter. I was covered in dust and blood. But I had her. They took our statements. They took Victor's men. They found the knife and the cars. They found Victor's list at the station. Victor turned himself in 4 days later, knowing the walls were closing in, the politicians bailing out. Lila and I, we weren't arrested. We were just 2 people who got caught in the crossfire of a mob war. We kept the secret of the staged threat, the fake text, the staged exchange. The cops believed the Ace of Spades was the whole story, the last piece of the Vulture's empire. Now, a year later, we're not running. We're just moving. We live in a small town by the coast. No shadows, no jazz clubs, just the ceaseless rhythm of the tide. Lila is a cashier at a bookstore now, and I'm the guy who keeps the lights on, the honest one, the fool. The past is still a foreign country. But now, when I reach into that dark, velvet pocket, I don't feel a knife anymore. I feel the weight of a wedding band. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind is just right, I swear I can still hear the distant, mournful, beautiful sound of a lone saxophone playing Lila's tune, the last note of the old life, and the first note of ours.